Welcome to the ultimate guide to motion dimension by XI Audio. I'm going to be giving you a rundown of all the features and controls inside this space and time modulation plugin. Please feel free to check out the chapter markers below if you're looking for anything specific, and you can find more videos on motion dimension on our channel. Let's listen to our first track. Now let's open up a copy of Motion Dimension. You'll see we got the default preset on, so we won't get any effects from it yet. The Motion Dimension logo in the top left can be used to bypass the plugin. Then in the middle we have our preset browser. We will come back to these later. Over here we have our tooltips. You can turn these on or off. I'm actually going to turn these off for now, but you can see when I'm hovering over any control, it will give you a brief explanation as to what it's doing. With this XI Audio logo in the top right, you can click it and you can enter your serial number here. You can grab your serial number from your account on Plugin Boutique. And in the bottom right corner, you'll see your safety limiter to stop the signal going over 0 dB. We'll keep this turned off for now. We also have this input through toggle. When turned off, audio stops inputting to the plugin, which allows delay and reverb tails to play out. And you can see when we play the audio, my mouse is attracting these 6 nodes in the middle. We'll be morphing our effects parameters using these nodes very shortly. Let's check out the effects by clicking this symbol on the right. You'll see we have delay and we have reverb. You'll also see when I hover over the delay, you get a visualizer at the bottom, and the same thing happens for reverb. You can turn this off in the top right. So let's throw a little bit of delay on first, and the fun starts straight away. I'll turn up this wet knob and play with the tone. Time and feedback. As you can hear there, it's a really nice sounding and creative delay. You can hover over the word delay to reveal the on-off toggle. And we can switch it up a bit and put it in reverse mode. This reverses each delay tap. We also have ping pong mode. This will alternate between left and right with each delay tap. This repitch control deals with what happens when time control is changed. Currently it is on, so you can hear that tape delay feel. If I turn it off, then you don't get that repitching when you change the time. We can offset the time of the right signal against the left as long as they are linked. This is great for adding stereo spread to your delays. Or if we unlink them, then we can set the 2 times individually. You should also see the void reacting to the parameters changing, which is a really nice touch. So keep an eye on subtle changes to the UI with each change I make to the parameters. Panning the delay around is also super easy. And we can also turn sync off, so you can just set your delay times in milliseconds. We can also set the feedback for the left and right signals individually if we unlink them. And we also have this super nice modulation section here. Playing with depth and rate can give you some quite wild results. So you can hear that chorusy like shimmering. Experimenting with tone will get you brighter or darker results. And the duck control is great to give your dry signal a bit more room to breathe during longer delays, as it ducks the delay output when the dry signal plays. Then we have our dry and wet controls, which can also be linked. When we link the dry and wet controls, we get these new mix and gain knobs. Not only do we have all this, but we also have a second delay, if you can believe it. Plus, we can use this high-low frequency slider to set the high and low cutoff points for each delay. Moving on to our reverb now. Once again, this thing sounds great without much tinkering. You can hover over the word reverb for your toggle on and off, as you could with the delay. So let's have a listen. The reverb time goes all the way up to 25 seconds, and when you have it at the maximum, it will actually freeze. There are two different reverb algorithms you can blend between using the character knob. You have a Hall and a plate reverb. At 0% we have a plate reverb, and 100% it's Hall, and we can create a blend with the character knob. We can adjust our pre-delay time in milliseconds to set the time between hearing the dry and reverberated signal. We can also adjust our stereo width. And size is pretty self-explanatory. You adjust the size of the reverb. Distance adjusts the balance between early and late reflections. And we can use shelf to select a frequency to cut or boost. Tone will make the reverb brighter or darker, much like it did for delay. And the duck control works the same as before. This ducks the reverb down in volume when the dry signal plays. Once again, we have dry and wet controls that can be linked to, and then mix and gain become visible when they are linked. We also have another low-high frequency slider for the reverb. And let's take a look at the display, which is another helpful visualization. We also have this routing section at the bottom. Each effect can be run in series or in parallel to each other, or a combination of the two. A to B to C with the arrows, all effects will run in series. If we have A plus B into C, then effects A and B will run in parallel, then running into C in series. A into B plus C means effects B and C will run in parallel, and A runs into both B and C in series. And finally, we have A plus B plus C, which all effects will run in parallel. Each can be reordered in the signal chain by dragging the name.
I've learned to handle my pain so well. I have no choice, so to make me too.
Now let's get onto the macro sliders. This is where we can start transforming our loops into evolving phrases, as if we weren't having enough fun already. You'll see my mouse is attracting in these little nodes on the UI. All we need to do is drag and drop one of our effects onto a node and set the min and max points. And now when our mouse attracts a node, it brings up and down the slider towards or away from the min or max values. What makes these macro sliders is that we can actually add multiple parameters to each node. It's worth noting each parameter can only be added to one node at a time though. Once we've mapped an effect to the hexagon slider, the number of the slider appears in the effect parameter. So we just click the number to open the effects mapping window and click the number again to close the window. In this effects mapping window, you can set the ranges for each parameter on the slider, delete single parameters from the list, or reset the entire effects mapping window. We can also drag the effect into the middle. This allows them to react dynamically to the input signal. The gain control sets how much of the input signal triggers the effect to react dynamically. Attack sets how quickly the effect reacts to the input signal. Release sets how quickly the effect returns to its starting position. And the threshold sets the dB level the input signal needs to reach in order for the effect to start reacting to the input signal. So let's start mapping some controls to all these nodes. Now we can open up our motion section. You'll see we have different cursor and hexagon options up here. We can select to manually move the nodes. Or we can set to attract, which is what we were on before. So anything within the range of that circle there will start attracting these nodes. We can also do the opposite and repel. So now nodes are being pushed away out of the circle surrounding our cursor. We can also set our range and strength controls, so we can make the circle bigger or smaller. And strength will control the gravitational pull of the circle, if you will. So you can see at 100% it really does attract quite heavily. We've had it on constant mode, which keeps the magnet constantly turned on. Click on and click off control what the function of the mouse click should do. Click on means that clicking turns the magnet on, and click off means clicking turns the magnet off. So when I select click off, when I don't hold my mouse down, the attraction will still trigger. When I press my mouse down like this, it stops. The inverse is true with click on. Nothing happens when I have my mouse depressed. But when I click on, the attraction starts. We can also set the amount of time the nodes will hold in place and return to their default positions once out of range. So you can see there with those slightly longer settings, it takes them a little longer to get back to their default place. The path section allows you to draw or record paths into the hexagon. You can also delete the path with this button on the right. In draw mode, we can create paths on the hexagon by plotting individual points for the cursor to move between. The line icon lets us draw a path by adding points with lines in between them. The circle icon will let us draw a circular path. The select tool lets you move and select existing points and curved lines in the path. And the add and remove point tools are self-explanatory. You can delete some and you can add some. You can use the resize tool to either resize your path or completely move it. And right-clicking any line can set the state to mouse on or mouse off. By setting this, you can make sure the cursor is active or inactive for certain parts of the path. Record mode lets you set a path on the hexagon by freely recording your cursor movements and cursor states in real time. The record icon starts recording the position and speed of the cursor. Some DAWs will also let you press R on your keyboard as a shortcut to start recording. And you can use the trim recording sliders to trim the start and end time of the recording. You can also permanently action your timeline trim by hitting the scissor button. The timeline section allows you to edit the duration of the path and the speed of the cursor. The play stop button starts and stops the playback of the path. We can also add points along the timeline by double-clicking. The x-axis represents time and the y-axis represents speed. We can create fast and slow moments and even have the cursor slow down to a stop for stationary moments. Fixed sets the duration of the timeline to the length specified by the time and multiplier, whereas free sets the duration of the timeline to the length of the recording. By using the cursor speed control, you can choose between the speed being set by the line you've drawn on the timeline or by the speed of your mouse when you recorded. So you can see that now the cursor speed is being set by the timeline above. And now it's being set by the speed of the recording. One nice thing about this is the relative speed of your mouse movements is preserved even if you change the duration of the recording. We also have 3 re-trigger settings. We have on, off, or synced. Currently we have it off, meaning when we press play in the DAW, the cursor simply follows the path at the set speed. When re-trigger is on, each time we hit play, it will start from the beginning of the path again. Finally, in synced mode, the cursor will synchronize with the DAW and start further along the path depending on where the playhead is. For this 4-bar length, you can see starting at bar 2 starts it a quarter of the way through, bar 3 starts halfway through, bar 4 at 3/4, and finally it starts again at bar 5 after the 4 bars have elapsed. On fixed mode, you can set sync to on or off. So this sets the timeline to display in either beats and bars or milliseconds. You can use the time control to choose the duration of the path and timeline, and multiplier multiplies the time by a set amount. And finally, offset will offset the start position of the path. The forward icon, which is what we have selected now, sets the cursor to move forwards along the path, whereas if we select the backwards icon, it sets the cursor to move backwards. We can also select the pendulum icon, which sets the cursor to move forwards and then backwards along the path. And the loop icon sets the path to loop continuously when playing. Finally, let's check out the preset browser. We have 250 here in the full version, which should be enough to get some inspiration. For this Imbira loop, this Plux Please preset sounds great. Within the browser, you can see the settings contained within each preset. So this one has both path and cursor and effects and mapping settings, and will therefore override both. However, if I select a preset with only one, it only overwrites the corresponding settings. So for example, this rich lead only has effects and mapping, and you can see there it's changed the effects, but we keep our path and cursor. The browser also contains a filtering section to filter and load presets depending on which settings are contained within it. So when you select the filter for path and cursor settings, it will display only presets that contain those, but it'll also only load the path and cursor settings from that preset. Similarly, for the effects and mapping, it will display all presets that contain effects and mapping settings, and it will only load those settings. If you select both of these filters, then it will only display presets that contain both, and therefore will load both. Leaving the filters unselected will display all presets and load all settings contained within each preset. You can also filter for your favorites too. You can use the arrows to navigate between presets. The magnifying glass icon will open the preset browser, as it will if you click the preset name, and you can hit the save icon to open the save preset dialog box. That was Motion Dimension by XI Audio. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below, and we'll catch you next time.